Well, now it's time for the Hanging with Ron Johnson segment, and this one is a fun one, a special one. I get to talk to my boy, a guy that I saw when he was a freshman, and I told the coaches then, this guy's going to be good. Eric Decker, Gophers wide receiver, NFL wide receiver, male model, married to Jesse James Decker, country singer. Eric Decker is one of the top Gopher receivers in Gopher football history. When you talk about yards, stats, touchdowns, overall, he was on the Mount Rushmore of Gopher football when they voted for the top 4 receivers. It was Eric Decker, Tyler Johnson, Rashad Bateman, and somehow I'm very thankful I ended up on that list. But Eric Decker, man, thanks for joining me on the Ron Johnson Show and the Hanging with Ron Johnson segment. First, I just want to jump out there, man. When you came from Cold Spring, in your mind, did you think like, hey, I can end up, because I saw it. I don't know if I told you, but I know I told Coach C, I told Coach Mason, I saw you, I think it was like bowl game practice your freshman year. I saw you run a route, and I'm like, man, this kid's good. And did you ever think that you would be in the position you were in as far as like one of the best Gopher wide receivers ever?
You know, honestly, coming from a small town, and my story is I was about to go to a Division III school until I got a one-day invite for the camp, and Coach Mason offered me a scholarship. But like at that time, transitioning to college, like my mentality was I'm just a small town kid. And I think it took me that first year to kind of get hit, rattle around a little bit, really learn what the physicality of Big Ten football is to say, okay, can I survive? Because I remember in off season, it's 15 below, I'm going to winter workouts, and I'm challenging myself. Do I really want to do this? And I think that was kind of a defining moment for me, is like, yeah, you got to stick this out. You got to fight through some adversity. And I think as I got closer to my second year into, because I redshirted, I started to see, okay, I can fit in. I can compete with these guys. And, my thing has always been to outwork people. And that's kind of what I've leaned on, was just to like grind every day and just kind of stack those bricks. And so I think by that time going into the season, I felt, okay, encouraged that I could hold my own.
And when you look at your career, I think Peyton Manning did a lot for it, showing up in Denver early on. Nobody knew what the Denver Broncos and Tim Tebow were going to be, but everybody saw what Peyton Manning was. And then everybody realized like, wow, this Eric Decker guy is good. What do you remember most about that when Peyton Manning joined you?
Yeah. We had kind of an up and down season before. Kyle Orton actually was a starter, and I was actually having a pretty good year. But as a team, we were struggling a little bit. So they made the transition to Tebow, and, the offense completely changed. Almost went to just a run style offense. And, that season we still had success. I mean, a lot of crazy stories, comebacks, made it to the playoff, beat the Steelers in the first round. And then, the next year, John Elway was the GM at the time, made the decision to bring in Peyton Manning. I think that just changed the landscape of the facility, of the organization, because we had a really good defense. That's what really kept us in a lot of games and won us a lot of games the year prior. But you could tell that just the confidence and, the work ethic was that much stronger when he comes in, because you're like, all right, we got a legit shot here. We got a lot of young talent on the offensive side. We just got to put the pieces together. And that offseason leading up was really exciting, because we, flew to North Carolina to work out with him, got to Denver early, and just, the way he worked tremendously helped Damaris and myself in kind of our early career.
And I coached Peyton when he was with the Colts for 2 years under Tony Dungy, so I know a lot of the Peytonisms. Yeah. I know a lot of the dry humor stuff. But when you talk about Peyton on the field, and as a receiver, like I remember talking to Reggie Wayne and Marvin Harrison and Antonio and Anthony Gonzalez about this, about like how long do you guys wait? Because I know when he comes to the line of scrimmage sometimes, and there's more of the Colts, I don't know if he had you guys do this in Denver, but they all put their outside foot up so that they could watch him. Where we grew up, where your inside foot was up when you're a receiver, because you're going to run a 3-step slant. Well, the Colts ran a 4-step slant. I don't know if that kind of changed in Denver, where you started running 4-step slants, 6-step bangs, stuff like that. Bang post, for people that know it's a quick post. I know it's a Peyton thing. It's an NFL thing, but I know Peyton loved it. But when you talk about that, like Peyton coming to the line of scrimmage, right away, he's scrapping the player. He's going to can the play, can. How hard was that early on for you to like sit there and wait for him to go through all his stuff before he got to your play?
Yeah, you got antsy. I think that's what you kind of worked out in training camp, because we would have a walkthrough before the walkthrough just to go through, like you're saying, these things. And he would not even call a play, but he'd be, he just kind of like try to intimidate the defense. And you're jumping off sides. He's like, what's the play? What are you going to run? What was the play? Just kind of barking at you. And that was, I think, what separated us, right? Was, we had a 10-play package, and it had names, numbers, codes, everything that made us play really fast. And then there was times where a play was called and he's at the line of scrimmage, and it was all audible, dummy stuff, just to kind of figure out the coverage was. As you got more reps with it, the more comfortable you got. And that was really, kind of to my favor, because for me, I'm not the most explosive, just freak in nature like Demaryius Thomas was. I had to kind of outthink people, find the open zones, all route running stuff. And so I thrived in that system. And, it just made us play fast. We grinded people down. And it was honestly, once you got comfortable, entertaining, just watching the defenses freak out and like try to make their own adjustments. And by the end of it, they're just playing soft coverage because they're like, all right, we'll just back off a little bit. And that's when we kind of just dink and dunked all the way down the field.
The funniest thing, because you say that, like I remember like one of those walkthroughs before the walkthrough, because we would be in the indoor in Indianapolis for training camp, and the offense would go through a walkthrough first. And I'll never forget, I think we did like one play, but one play took like 7 minutes because he had to keep going over it, and he had to keep telling the guys like this was. And at one point, Jeff Saturday, the center, just sat on the ground. It was like, man, I'm not standing here for this. Like, come on, like what are you doing? Like, we get it. Like the corner or because he wanted to make the nickel the Mike, and he's trying to explain to the offensive line why. Like, this is going to be the Mike, and so then he's counting for them, saying, hey, there's 2 corners outside of the nickel. So meaning it's going to take one of those corners to come for you to be hot. And he was talking to, I wasn't there for this, but he kind of told me the story because I was the grunt work coach. I made copies. I was the assistant receivers coach. And he told me that like, and your boy, Ben Utek, I don't know if he ever told you the story, but Ben Utek had a similar situation where Peyton Manning had given everybody, like I used to make the copies and then I'd hand them out to all the coaches. And you know how that goes in meetings. And so I handed all the coaches out the changes. Well, I guess Ben Utek wasn't paying attention. And so they get out there on the field. Peyton calls the check. Ben Utek has no idea what it is. And so instead of like, it's practice. Instead of saying, oh, wait, what is that? Yeah. He just runs like straight. He's like, you know what? I'm going to just clear out the seam. Like maybe I'm right. And Peyton, and then it was actually like supposed to be to him. He was supposed to like hook up, and then I think Reggie was going to run like a deep or a short over behind him. Well, he throws it at the back of Ben Utek's head.
Yep.
And hits him with the ball. And then later, Utek tells a story. Later, Peyton, like in the breakdown, whatever, bring it up, team. Right above. He's like, and some of y'all need to put down the guitar and stop singing and pick up the playbook. So when you say that, the hut, and then somebody jumps. So were you the guy that jumped off sides?
Oh, I mean, we all were. Yeah, a few times. And I've run the wrong hot as well. It's funny you say that because he'll mic someone just to make, the guy guarding you the hot. So
right.
To make the adjustment, right? And so he'll sit in the line, he'll stare at you because he wants you to point him out like, hey,
right.
He's right here. He stares at you. He's like, you gonna talk? Next guy, and he'll just replace you. Just like,
oh yeah.
It's like, oh, that's when I think it made it. And we talk about his personality. Like when he's on the field, he really is the general. He is, coordinating practice. He is manipulating stuff off the field. Yeah, just a dry humor. Fun guy to be around, and it's a good mix because you learn like when you work, and when you're off the field, you got to enjoy the process as well.
And 7 years ago, Peyton Manning did the Michael Orr spoof. I had never seen that until now because, of course, Michael Orr is famous again for his family not really adopting him and doing a conservatorship. But Peyton Manning did. I don't know if you saw that, but he's like, he walks up, Sandra Bullock is like the movie, but then he's spoofing himself in there like, wait a minute, I'm Peyton Manning. I have houses. I don't need to come to your house. And he goes to his house. And then like in the end, he's like hiding behind the couch as she's looking for him. And he's calling Eli. And Eli is an Ole Miss guy. So that's what people don't understand. It's a double joke. Because right. Eli's laughing because, he's stuck in this house with some lady trying to force him to play quarterback for Ole Miss. And he's like, Eli, it's not funny. Stop laughing. He's like, this lady keeps calling me Big Mike, and so it's like a whole spoof about it. So his humor, you can see it. And I always knew like it was weird funny, like, because he would do stuff all the time. And the coaches, we'd sit in the meeting room like, what is he talking about? But but the one thing I will say, though, is transitioning to a different quarterback. You played and you were blessed. I tell Adam Weber this all the time. I wish I could have had a consistent quarterback for 3 years. I had Billy Cockrum, I had Andy Persby, then I had Asad Abdul-Khalik, and then I had a transfer in Travis Cole my senior year who came in from a JUCO in California because Asad, I don't know if you ever met Asad Abdul-Khalik, but he was immature. He was a very immature third year. He was his third year by then, but he was immature. So I think Glenn Mason was kind of like, look, we might need to get a quarterback in here. And so he gets a JUCO transfer, who ends up starting like 8 games, him and Asad split time. But you were blessed to have Adam Weber for 3 years. Adam Weber, 10,000 yards, one of the best Gopher quarterbacks in history. How cool was that, though, to have like a consistent quarterback, even though, because I know your offenses might have changed a little bit with Jed Fish and some other guys, but you still had your QB the whole time. How was that?
Yeah, no, it was awesome. The first time I met Adam was actually at that camp, in the summer at Minnesota in high school, and just kind of we even hit it off then. And I know he was being looked at, not signed yet. And then coming in, having him for really the tenure of my career was, like you said, just to have that consistency. And we built a really strong friendship. So, you have that trust off the field. It translates so well on the field. And, we had our own shares of bumps with, we had a new coordinator about every year. And so for him, just the challenge to learn a new system, a new language, obviously telling what the line what to do, receivers, understanding everybody's role. But at the same point, we knew we could rely on each other. And I think that was the takeaway for my career. Was I was definitely blessed to have him there the whole time through my career, and someone that was super consistent, someone that was super successful at the college level.
And I remember 2009 because that was my first year working with the Big Ten Network. So I was able to cover some games. I did Michigan State. So I've talked to Kirk Cousins about that because that was Kirk Cousins' kind of first year getting a chance to start. He split time with Keith Nichols. So Kirk and I have had that conversation. And then I remember 2009 as well. I got to have Eric Decker join us in the booth. I don't know if you remember that, but you came up to the booth. I don't know if it was the Illinois game maybe, but you had just gotten hurt. We kind of announced it to the world that, you were going to be done and you were going to have surgery and get ready for the NFL. You only played 8 games that year. And I think I did like 3 or 4 Gopher games that year on the Big Ten Network. But the one thing I do remember is, man, in 8 games, you already had 50 catches. There's guys that don't get 50 catches at Minnesota in 12 or 13 games. You had 50 in 8. The year before you had 84. So you were probably headed towards 250 catches, probably 3,600 yards, probably 35 touchdowns because you finished with 5. You probably would have had at least 10. So maybe 31 touchdowns or 29 touchdowns. But when that injury happened, do you think that like helped you just mentally start preparing for the NFL? Or do you kind of wish you can go back to that time?
I wish I could get it back. I think I struggled the last 2 years with injuries. I remember my junior year, just the same thing, an ankle injury that kind of lagged on for the rest of the year towards the end. And then obviously my foot, the Liz Frank, that ended my college career. There's 2 things. I was burnt out mentally and emotionally from playing baseball and football. And I think, in the long run, it probably was the best thing for me. It made me shut down and kind of, though I was probably depressed and like angry and all these different emotions, I was able to like focus on myself and get my body into a professional state. That was my mindset, was like, all right, let's just attack this. And I got I got my surgery in November, and then I went to Arizona in December to start rehabbing and getting ready for the draft. So it was nice to get kind of a fresh, breath of fresh air, going to Arizona, somewhere warmer, somewhere different, and just kind of being focused on myself. And so I think that really helped the transition, truthfully, mentally and emotionally. Because if I didn't, it would have been football season, bowl game, right into, combine training, and I just would have been so burnt out. So, I think it was kind of in God's plan to kind of give me that time. No, it affects me still today, but mentally to be in the right spot.
Yeah, because if you think about it, when you look at the NFL draft, and you used a word that I like there, and not like, but I'm glad you said it. You hit a bout of depression. It was tough. And, I know PJ Fleck talks about rowing the boat, and a lot of guys can look back on their life and say, oh, because now when PJ does interviews now, I think he's starting to open up. He not admits, but he kind of is quick to say like, yeah, my son had passed away and I had to figure out how to get out of bed every day. That was kind of your roll the boat moment after your foot injury. So when you're going through that process of like having to get out of bed every day, just realize, you know what? Because I know there probably some thought like, is my career over? Am I going to get drafted now? Are people going to question if I'm good enough to play or healthy enough to play in the NFL because it's 2 years? So yeah, what was that mental state like at that time?
Yeah, I think for me, just to get healthy again for myself, so I could walk again and feel comfortable. But then I was nervous going in because, truthfully, a white receiver from Minnesota, like, probably not the most attractive thing. I want to see him run. Is he actually quick? He's not playing, he plays a different style. And so that was, the challenge to me was, okay, well, I'm going to try to dominate, just the interviews, the testing, and really bench press is the only thing I could do in the combine. But just show up and be myself and show that, like, intelligent-wise, I have it. Physicality-wise, it's a question. You're taking a chance, but I know that it's there. It's just that I need someone to take a chance on me. And so I was fortunate enough to get with a good agent, to get into a good place to do first my surgery, but then my physical therapy rehab. And, thank God I ended up in Denver and didn't know where I would be, but that was a great place to go as well with kind of the doctors that were there and the training staff that kind of helped even just get me through training camp into that first season. Because it really took me a full year to get healthy. And I think that place, I didn't feel a lot of pressure where I was drafted because DeMarius was the first round draft pick. They had Brandon Lloyd, they had Jabbar Gaffney. So they had some veteran guys that did make me feel like I needed to show up and perform year one. So that was, again, just kind of the synopsis of really that 6-month window of getting to the season.
And you were drafted to the Minnesota Twins. You're a Minnesota kid. So the Vikings probably would have been one of your thoughts, like, man, I love to play for my hometown team I grew up watching. But then also the Minnesota Twins. I know you're a baseball guy. Was there any like inkling in your mind to say, maybe I should do this baseball thing?
Well, what's funny is I called Joe Mauer. I was like, what made you choose baseball or football? Well, first of all, he's first round draft, overall. So that makes a whole lot of sense. But I think his passion lied in baseball. And, for me, that was my first passion when I was young. I was like Kirby Puckett made over. That's who I wanted to be. Excuse me. But then when I got into high school, I got to the team sport. I mean, football is special. And that's why it's probably one of the greatest sports, the greatest sport in our country today, is because of the team aspect, the physicality of it, and just, what it brings to Sundays and every other primetime day. But, like, my heart was in football. Like, I loved it. And I also knew that lifestyle-wise, it was what I wanted, more consistency. I was practicing all week, played a game. Baseball, you can be on the road for 2 weeks. And I'm a family guy. I wanted to have kids. And I know how tough it would be just to kind of have both. And so those, I think things steered me into the direction of football. And I also wasn't like that great at baseball that I wouldn't have been stuck in the minors forever, because I probably would have. And so I think that too was like, you know what? I'm probably more developed and better skilled at football right now. Like this is the path I want to go.
I think you made a good choice. I think you made a great choice. When you look at, and you talked about that, having kids and family, you are married to a celebrity. And, first, did you go after her, or did she see you somewhere and come after you?
Well, a quick story how we met. Actually, I was in Arizona training. A friend of mine who I was training with was talking to this girl in Arizona. She said she had a friend. I'm like, great, I'd love to meet your friend. Ended up being Jess, who was living in Tennessee at the time. And so we connected over the phone at first. And, at that time, 23 years old, I'm young and single. And it was the best thing for us. Like, we just had 2-hour conversations for like 3.5 weeks. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to fly to Nashville and come meet you. And so that's how we met, just kind of a whim of friends that, somehow met each other. They just met this girl like at some charity event. And, like barely stayed in touch, but just it's wild how it all came together. But fortunate enough that we got connected, and honestly, we just hit it off. And 2 months after we actually met in person, I'm like, "You're going to come to Denver with me for the season," and the rest is history.
Oh, so you told her she has to come?
But I was chasing. I was definitely chasing. Like you kind of have this. And I told her forever, I'm like, I just want to be single. I want to be able to travel. She's like, okay. So like she wouldn't call me for the first 2 months. She did not call me. She did not text me first. She had me chasing, and I was chasing hard.
Well, now you both are chasing your kids, and you. I saw the baby bump announcement she made on Instagram. I have met her a couple times at charity events and with you when she came to Minnesota. I love her personality. She's a great person. She has a ton of Eric Decker stories. We'll get into one towards the end because she mentioned this, and then I got to ask because I've asked Spaeth about this. I've talked to your teammates about this. I'm pretty sure you know where we're going with this, but I never actually got a chance to talk to you about it, and so I got to get your take on it. But when you talk about this, like you said, you wanted to be a dad. You're having your fourth kid, which a lot of people do 6 years after their last kid, and like you said, it was like I didn't think this could happen, but you guys are headed to kid number 4. And you're, like I said, you're not in your 40s, so you guys are still young, like, because that's the key. Like, you're still young, you still have your knees, you can run around. But having kid number 4, one, are your kids excited? And then 2, I'm pretty sure Vivi, how old is she now?
She'll be 10.
Yeah, so she's the oldest, right?
Yep.
So she'll be able to like feed the baby, help out. I know she's excited about it, but how are the rest of the kids excited about baby number 4?
Yeah, I think it was just initial shock for everyone. Like, I thought she was playing a prank on me. Truthfully, when she told me, I'm like, there's no chance now. And, it once kind of chewed on it for a couple of days.
What do you mean? What do you mean there's no chance? There's always a chance if you have not done the finale.
It's so out. Like, I'm saying, like, checked out. Like, no, this is it. Like 3, but, you don't get.
Like, I can say that. I've had the surgery. I am done. Like, if we have a baby, like I'm calling the lawyer because I'm like, wait a minute, I'm either taking you or I'm suing this doctor that said it was done. Like, so what do you mean? So you were checked out, you're like, we're not having babies, and then what happened?
Well, obviously it happened, and then I think after a few days, I'm saying the shock started to wear off. I was like, you know what, this is a blessing, 100%. And the kids were excited. They've been asking for another sibling, another sister, really is what they wanted for forever. And we're like, no, 3 is the number. We're a happy family. We got this down. And again, like you said, Vivi's going to be a great help. Eric is our second. He'll be 8 here real soon. He's going to be a huge help. Forrest is about to be 6, and he's excited. So, like, everyone's excited, but what changes is, all right, new vehicle now. Obviously, travel's going to be a little different. Find another bedroom to stick this child, right? And just kind of some life changes that, obviously fortunate to be able to have that accommodated, but, just starting over, like we got rid of the baby stuff. We got rid of the gates. Bringing them back in. And here we go. Diapers. Yeah, I saw the announcement. I thought it was a joke too. I thought she was going to do one of those, like, she just ate too much or something, because like I see women do that all the time now. They show up, they act like they're pregnant. They do one workout and they're like, oh, that was just, So I was like, this has got to be. And then I started looking at because I even had to go to the comments, and all the comments were saying congratulations. I'm like, all right, wait a minute. Am I going to see a joke in here? Because some people were saying like, are you serious? Is this for real? So like you never know with social media these days. But speaking of social media, I don't know if it's your idea or your wife's idea. Your teammates have asked about this. We all are wondering. You keep ending up naked on social media. I mean, I know you're a cute, sexy guy. You're in shape. But what? I mean, are you just going viral? Like, is that the goal? Like, hey, we have something to promote, so let's go viral. Eric, you get naked because I know you did it for your birthday, and now you've done it for like her cookbook. Like, what? Like, does she have to coax you into this, or is it just like I'm doing it? Sex sells. Whatever it takes. Help your significant other one out. Like, let's go. I'm just reading the cookbook for a little morning coffee time naked. That's how I roll. Just a little transparency into what real life looks like. I look I should probably get a haircut, but other than that,
like, can your neighbors? Do you guys have enough space, like trees, where your neighbors can't see you?
Yeah, there's privacy. I'm the guy that walks out when sun goes down and the kids are down in bed. I'm naked, jumping in the pool, walking around the yard. Like it's freeing in a sense to be as we were brought into this world, right? And be comfortable, walking around, like not having people judge you. So I guess maybe I'm a nudist. I don't know, but I enjoy my skin.
I'm about to say, yeah, you might need to talk to Channing Crowder. I don't know if you've seen his stuff on the pivot. Him and his wife go to a nudist colony. Like,
Have they really?
Oh yeah, him and his wife. Just Google Channing Crowder, nudist colony or Miami. Like him and Kevin Hart sat down and he made that comment on Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart was like, "Wait, what? Wait, hold on." You can't skip. He's like, you can't just skip over this. Go back. Like what? And Ryan Clark is just like, all right, I'm gonna let y'all talk about this. Like we've already heard this story. And yeah, he says it. He's like, man, we wanted to try it. So we went to a nudist colony and just wanted to see what it was like. And it's like, he's like, but I'm not for like the old people butt naked getting eggs. He's like, I don't want nothing wrong with my eggs. And Kevin Hart literally was just like, wait, what? He's like, y'all are lying to me. He's like, this is a setup. So one day, maybe after baby number 4 is like 4 or 5 years old. Then you can do it. I'll just say for grandparents now it's 4 because I know you guys, the grandparents help out. What are their thoughts now taking care of 4 and not 3 kids that can feed themselves and do everything for themselves?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're excited too. They, Jess has now 10 cousins, and I got about the same amount on my side. So
okay,
it's definitely a full house. And I would just say, yeah, they're excited. Like obviously, it'll be nice. Hey, we need some help. Watch the big kids as take care of the infant or vice versa once the infant gets old enough. So, as you know too, it just takes a village to raise kids, and definitely lucky to have that support. And I know they're excited to add another nugget to the crew.
Yeah, and this year, man, like it's been not just this year, but like I feel like the last couple of years has been tough since COVID hit.
Yeah.
A lot of players became isolated. A lot of players were kind of locked down by themselves. Stories were coming out of players, being off by themselves, and Marion Barber passing away, and then we heard the Demaryius Thomas. When you think about Demaryius Thomas, and I know that was your boy because we've talked about it before. Like I've talked to you during COVID with the Vikings. We had a little stay-at-home series the Vikings did. And you talked about that. And, and then to fast forward to this, you talk about how great of a teammate he was. How hard was that? Or, what do you want people to remember the most about Demaryius Thomas?
Yeah, I mean, the dude had the biggest heart of anyone I've known. His upbringing, his story, being fortunate to be brought into a family that took care of him and provided for him as his, mother and grandmother were in jail, his father not around, and just the type of person he became is tremendous. And the way he gave back to his communities, the way he made other people feel was super special. And I think that's, always the biggest takeaway for me was like that smile is what I always say. It's like that smile transforms a room. And, it's just a blessing to have him in my life and miss him every day. And, what's hard too is his story towards the end is he had seizures and he got his driver's license basically taken away from him, so he couldn't drive, but he wouldn't tell anyone. And he was going to the doctor and trying to figure out what was going on. And like, talk about isolation. And I went through it myself as I transitioned. It's like you need people to reach out to and talk to, especially as men, and especially as football players, military, I think, or just as athletes in general. You think, oh, I'm tough. I just got to get through this. I just got to get to the next day. I got to get to the next opportunity. And what we really need is like, all right, I'm struggling. Like I need some help. I need to talk about this. I need support here. And that was the biggest thing that I found for myself going through, like it's been a 3-year journey for me as well to kind of like find my bearings, because so much of myself, my identity, was tied into football, was tied into the success and, things that came with it. And the reality is that like, just we need community of people. And I think that's where, as football players, retired football players, like finding that in your communities or finding that within, each other across the country is vitally important. And especially going through COVID, even more so. And I look at it now from an adolescent standpoint too. A lot of these kids, youth are struggling with the same mental health issues. And like, we need to figure out how to curve this. And, I know social media has added a lot of stress to it. And like this is a big problem right now, epidemic. I really feel like in our country, and we got to, as men, as leaders, and as athletes who have been through it, I think we're at the forefront to help out.
Yeah, I mean, I know I've been like same thing. I was there way before that, but like 2007, 2008, I was there. Like I know the exact same feeling. You walk away from football, you feel like nobody wants you, you don't know what to do. You're like, hey, I'm just chill. And you think it's easy, and then day by day, you realize I haven't left the house. Like I haven't done anything. I don't want to see people. I don't want to talk to people. And then it becomes comfortable. Like I'm gonna just stay in the house. I'm gonna play video games. I'm gonna eat. I'm gonna do this. And at that time I was married. So that was probably tough on my wife too. Like, man, he's not. And then I got blessed with Tony Dungy calling me, hey, do you want to come coach? Sure. And the Big Ten Network offered me a job. And, and I don't know if I could have pulled myself out of that. I don't know if what would have happened. But I do know I was thankful. And then, now 11, 12 years later, 13 years later, we're here doing this with NBC. We do the Vikings pregame show, the Gophers pregame show, the PJ Flex show. So, it's another way to stay connected. But I do know the more I get a chance to talk to players like yourself, Nate Burleson, Ryan Clark, we all talk about the same thing. And it's kind of it's a weird fraternity that it takes somebody to reach out, because everybody's like, oh, this person's busy, or this person got and then you realize, one or two text messages, you're like, man, like, yeah, that was cool. I'm glad I talked to him, and so that's what I'm going to personally do. I told a lot of younger Gophers that too, to make sure I reach out to guys, whether they're getting released, whether they're getting cut, whatever, because at 43, I've been there. And so, I think I'm an elder statesman now, where I can kind of tell guys, like, I know exactly what you're going through. I know exactly what you've been through. I've had my dad passed away. My mom had brain cancer. My wife has went through breast cancer. So I've seen a lot. A lot, but I'm thankful for your friendship, Eric. I'm thankful for everything. I mean, I still remember talking to you and Ernie, and I remember you saying that, like, oh yeah, man, I'm gonna get that record at some point. And so, and slowly that year, every week I was getting text messages. And I tell you this too, man. I tell Ernie this. I told Rashad Bateman this. I told Tyler, like I interviewed Tyler Johnson. I told him this. I am very thankful for you guys, and this is why, man. Like if I were to sit on top forever and just 31 touchdowns, 3,000 yards, blah, 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 200 catches, like nobody's going to talk about me. Nobody's going to talk about Gopher football. But every day you started to come, Big Ten Network was calling me. ESPN was calling me. Hey, like Eric Decker's passing you, man. What do you think? And it's great. Then Rashad Bateman did it. Then Tyler Johnson did. It was fun. And so I think one of my best pictures still to this day is you and I, Tyler, Rashad, and Chris Altman-Bell after the Penn State win. That's still one of my top moments, just to see all four of us in the same room. 5, Chris Altman-Bell is going to, he might finish as one of the top, but he's played for 7 years. So I don't know if we can count that. but that's one of the best moments, just because you don't see that a lot. And now I'm starting to see it because of, like, you saw Cam Newton with Bo Jackson. You're starting to see guys do that, like get to these games, talk to the older generation players. So that was something, PJ and I have talked about that. That's something that nobody can take from us, man. Like no matter what people say, no matter what they want to go do and talk about. And I know at some point you're going to be in the Gopher Hall of Fame, so I'll be there for that. Hopefully I'll be there for that. Hopefully I can make it to it. But yeah, I know you're going in the Hall of Fame. I know I just went in, so you got to be right behind me. But I'm Ron Johnson. That's Eric Decker. I want to thank you. I did see the Jets hat. Like, are the Jets your love, or is it just that's the hat that was laying around and you want to cover your hair?
I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, Ron, this year.
Oh, Aaron Rodgers. Okay.
The Kool-Aid. A-Rod's in town. I was just up there a few weeks ago with my son, and I was like, all right, I love the energy is high. New York has a special place in my heart because I really enjoyed my time up there. Denver was always probably the most successful part of my career, but New York, we had a good season and a couple of good years up there. But like just the people, the front office, the fan base, how New York and New Jersey are just wild. So I do want to say that I do love you too. Like you've paved the way, and you were always kind of that like pinnacle to try to strive for. And what I think now as I mature as an individual, as a man, is that like you are a resource. Like you're available, and I think that's so important too. And what I love about you is that like you want to help others be successful, whether it's at football, whether it's in life, career, trying to figure out the next step is. And I think honestly, as a parent now, like guys like you is who I want my kids to be around. So I really appreciate everything you've done for me in my career, but also just who you are as a person.
Yeah, man. Anytime, whenever you and Jesse come to town, if you guys want to go out and the grandparents, want to go, hey, my daughter, my 12-year, well, she'll be 13. She loves to babysit. She just babysat Gabe Henderson, who works for the Vikings, his 4-month-old, by herself. We all went out to dinner. She kept a 4-month-old, put her to bed, fed her a bottle. So she's certified, though. She does have her certification for babysitting. She did it at the Grace Church here in Minnesota, Indian Prairie. So she's fully certified. But yeah, man, anytime, like we would love to, like my kids love kids. Like, they love to.
What's the price range on it?
She's cheap. She's like $8. She's like $8 an hour. So she's very cheap. She actually, like, when she babysit Gabe, we told her don't even take the money. We're like, no, this is like we're doing you guys a favor as new parents. Gabe Henderson's now the what is he? I think he's the executive director of Vikings Entertainment Network content. And so he's a good friend of ours now the last 3 years since he's been here. And yeah, they just had a baby, 4-month-old. So we were all like, man, I remember that time. I'm like, we got to get out to dinner. Like, you got to get out the house, drop the baby off. We'll all go out to dinner. Because you don't want to be that disgruntled parent that never gets to do anything because you have a baby. And you know how it is. Like, relationships can get strained because of kids are annoying. They will ruin your relationship.
Yeah.
Because they don't know it. They don't do it on purpose. They just want time. They want to play. Like, you're trying to, I know you and Jess do this. Like, you're trying to have a conversation with your wife. You're into a really good conversation. And then here come the kids. Like, and they just want to talk. Yeah. And so we've learned now to close, like when we close our door, do not bother us. Let us talk. We're trying to unload for the day, have a conversation. It's made us closer. Like it's helped us through like tough times, arguments. Like, we don't argue as much anymore because we realize, like, sometimes we argue it's just because we haven't seen each other. Like, I got 5 jobs. She's the dean of students at a high school. She's a track coach. So it's like, man, I look up and I'm like, I haven't seen you in like a day. And then, and then you're like kind of frustrated. And then you're like, well, like what the heck's going on? And you're like, hey, well, 1, we need to be a little bit more intimate. That's probably part of it. 2, we haven't talked. And so we'll just, sit outside on the deck or have a drink or, just sit in a room, like lock the door, sit in a room. Like we've even done now, which we love because we just moved. We have a bigger walk-in closet now. So we actually can just sit in the closet. Like we'll lock our door and then go to the closet because the kids are so dumb. They are not dumb. Sorry. Well, they are. They walk or lazy. Sorry. The word's lazy. They'll walk in our room and not see us and then like go look for somewhere else.
Yeah.
Cause they're like, there's no way they're in the closet. And it's like, yeah, we're in the closet. We just like, she was in there, I don't know, changing clothes maybe. And I just came in and we just end up sitting in the closet for like 30 minutes talking. And so I will say that, to all young couples, especially you guys with the new baby. Yeah. If you come to town for a Gophers game, hey, let us know. We'll definitely, we love the babies. We love the kids. So I'm thankful for you to even say that. Cause you just never know, man. And I tell people, like, more conversations, more talk, more text. But last one, I had to say it. You brought it up. I wasn't gonna bring it up. Aaron Rodgers to the Jets. You were around there. I saw Braylon Edwards went out there. Mark Sanchez, like everybody's back to be it. Bart Scott, like everybody's going back out to the Jets now. Now you guys have Dalvin Cook from the Minnesota Vikings as well. Do you feel like this is the year, 1, for the Jets media to take over the Giants media because the Giants kind of own New York, but now is this going to be a Jets year? And then 2, which has happened before, once or twice. Brett Favre did it, and then the playoff year. I don't. Were you on that team with Bart Scott with the Can't Wait?
That was the year before. It was like 2010.
Okay, so the Can't Wait year, I know the media loved them too. But do you think this is actual a chance to go to a Super Bowl with the team they put together?
Well, I'll say this. I mean, the season's got to play out, and I think it really comes down to who can stay the healthiest, obviously. And they got a tough schedule, but like what I'm afraid of is every week's going to be a Super Bowl. The media is going to say, "Oh, they win, they're the Super Bowl champs, they're favorite. They lose, oh, they're just a bust." It's a long season, so I really think that they have. I mean, their defense speaks for itself, and that's really what's going to get you through a lot of this season and into the playoffs. And so you got a guy like Aaron, who, again, can kind of manipulate this protection. He's got some really talented guys. Garrett Wilson is like one of my favorite guys to watch. He is so quick, so fast, but just a really good dude. And now you had Cook, and you got the running backs they have had already in the room. Like they got talent, and so this is their best shot for sure over the course of I guess really the last 10 years. 2015, we should have made it. I mean, we kind of laid an egg the last game, but we had a good squad as well. So, yeah, like I told you earlier, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. This is the year. Like, I would love to see them run the table and go to the Super Bowl because I'm all in.
Yeah, we were supposed to make this quick, but Eric Decker is just so good, so much content, so much stuff to talk about. I had to keep going, man. I could ask you questions for hours. Like this could be its own special because there's so much in there. Like with the Jets and Sauce Gardner. Like Sauce Gardner went to my high school in Detroit. I remember my dad passed away. That's the way this thing works. Like my dad passed away in 2018. I went back to my high school to speak to my high school just about focus and the tough times I was going through because literally after my dad passed away, I buried him. Came home a month later, my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. So I never grieved, still to this day. Like I know one day it's going to hit me and I'm just going to be a absolute mess. But I've never truly grieved my dad because we went right into like, what do we got to do? She's 37. Like, what do we do? And it's chemo and it's this and I still had to worry about, Gopher shows and Viking shows. And I had to push through. Like I couldn't just quit. And I remember talking to the Gopher, my high school team, the Martin Luther King Crusaders. And then later, somebody reached out to me when Sauce Gardner was coming to Minnesota to play. They said, hey, man, he was on that team. He actually was the guy sitting in front of you. So I had somebody sent me the picture and I'm like, oh, Sauce Gardner was. So I texted him like, yo, hey, man, I don't know if you remember, I came and spoke to you, me and Larry Foote and blah, blah. And he's like, oh, yeah, man, just catch up with me before the game. And so get on the field, talk. So, it's one of those things where you never really know when you talk how you can impact the future. And so for you to say that, like Sauce Gardner is one of those kids where I remember talking and who knows where he would have ended up, who knows if, he would have kept doing the right things. But I told those guys like one mistake, and this, you've been around teammates, have done some dumb stuff. One mistake can change your entire life and you might recover, but you'll never recover the way you should have or could have if you hadn't made that mistake. And so that's why I'm glad Sauce Gardner stayed out of trouble, went to Cincinnati. Now, one of the number one cornerbacks in the NFL. So when you talk about that team of Garrett Wilson and watching him and Sauce Gardner, it's like, man, this team can be really good.
Yeah.
This team can be really good. And I'm glad the Vikings don't have to deal with them until maybe the Super Bowl. That's one of the positives. I can actually cheer for Aaron Rodgers now. I'm an Aaron Rodgers fan. I've always liked him. I definitely appreciate his game. So now it's fun to see that. But, man, congratulations on the baby. Good luck. And we'll catch up for sure this season.
Thanks, Sean.